everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. So before I begin, I have a question for you. Can anyone raise their hand in the audience if they remember music playing during the intermission? OK, some of you. Now I've got a harder question for you. Can anyone raise their hand if they could tell me and remember the artists that made the songs that played during intermission? There's no one who raised their hands. That's almost like I made a TED Talk about that. So that makes a lot of sense, because we as audience members passively consume so much music that artists are actually finding it harder to build sustainability within a listenership. There's a lot of things that we take for granted about our daily lives, and music is one of the biggest factors. Music is like air for us. We listen to it when we're grocery shopping, when we're commuting to work or school, or when we're waiting on hold for a ridiculously long amount of time for a customer service rep to help us. Music surrounds us completely. But are we actually consciously paying attention to who it is that's making the songs we have on in the background? I know in the last few years, I've really struggled with finding artists that I truly connect with, but I haven't struggled to consume huge amounts of media every single day. I'll watch YouTube or Netflix in the background of virtually everything I do, and I could sing 15 seconds of a popular song on the radio, but if you asked me to sing more than that, or better yet, tell you who it was that wrote it, I would definitely struggle a little bit more. And this is a universal experience because it's happening for a reason. In the last few years, the music industry has shifted rapidly to accommodate an increase of listenership from audiences across the world. And it is related to the pandemic, but it was happening before COVID even began. Starting in about 2018, we saw a number of music acts reach mainstream audiences without the help of major labels getting them there, and I was one of them. If you know If you know nothing about me, great, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Maya. I'm a 22-year-old mixed-race queer artist that grew up over in Oakland, California. Hear it for the East Bay. My artist project name is mxmtoon, and I was raised by two teachers who frankly never expected their daughter to pursue a career in music. And frankly, I never even dared to dream of doing such a thing because I never saw myself represented in those spaces to begin with. To me, the music industry was this big, shiny world that was hidden behind wall after wall of impossibility for any person that didn't have the right connections or money. I didn't belong there. I was going to be a teacher just like my parents, but clearly, the internet had other plans for me. Like a lot of people in my generation, I grew up using social media as a form of self-expression. I got my very first Instagram account when I was 11 years old with the stellar username MayaPapaya123. And that was just the start for me. I made more accounts in different places. I had multiple Vine accounts for short-form video content. I had a collaborative YouTube channel that I shared with my friends in middle school. And I even made a second Instagram account entirely dedicated to cartoon drawings called mxmtoon. To me, social media was a place where I could express my creative identity, and all of these platforms became permanent parts of my creative toolkit that I still use today. Eventually, I found songwriting, and knew because of my relationship to social media, there had to be so many ways for me to get my music into the world for people to listen to it. And so I did just that. I acted not only as a songwriter, but a 17-year-old promotional machine who was churning out live streams, tweets, and videos every single month. And I kept on doing that. Fast forward to 2019, and I've added more elements, one of the biggest being posting to an app with a main page algorithm called the For You page. You probably know it, and if you don't, it's TikTok. TikTok became a huge part of not only what I do on a daily basis, but what a lot of people do on a daily basis during the pandemic. And when I was releasing my first album, The Masquerade, the lead single, Prom Dress, was a song I knew I wanted to present on TikTok. So I made weeks of promotional content right on my phone and shared it in hopes of something catching a spark. And luckily for me, it did. Prom Dress ended up getting over 300 million streams since its release. It has over 500,000 videos created with it on TikTok, and it was just recently certified platinum, which is incredible. Thank you. Thank you. And none of that would have been possible without TikTok or social media as a whole. Here's an example of a video that my friend Lulu made when the song was going viral.
I'm sitting here, crying in my prom dress. I need the prom queen, crying was a contest. Makeup is running down, feelings are all around. How did I get here? I need to know.
So now that you all know a little bit more about my story to get here, how have I stayed? And what has a shifting landscape also meant in terms of obligations for artists? Well, before I try to answer those questions, I want to introduce two concepts to you. A, an artist economy, and B, a song economy. An artist economy is one that creates loyalty because there's an established connection between creator and creation, in turn building fandom and fueled by conscious consumption. People understand who and what they're listening to. Whereas a song economy is one that's often algorithm-based, it's fueled by passive consumption, and it doesn't encourage curiosity amongst listeners to have that same connection with the artist. Simply put, an artist economy is like buying a ticket to a show or an album from an artist that you really like, whereas a song economy is like pressing play on a playlist that you didn't make and finding a song you like, but not with the expectation that you were choosing that to begin with. In the last few years, we've transitioned from an artist economy into something that has a little more similarity to a song economy, and the obligations for artists has shifted as a result. At the beginning of the pandemic, we were all scrambling to figure out what was going to happen to our jobs, our routines, our mental well-being, and musicians had a lot of these same questions, with a lot of them no longer able to maintain their live music business. With concerts out of the question, it threw a lot of people in the entertainment industry into the deep end. And it also, as we know, forced every person to transition to an online existence. Some of us were really lucky because we had an understanding of how to move forward with social media and use it to our benefit, but not everybody did, especially when it came to places and apps like TikTok. TikTok became the beginning and the end of how we promote and release music, and it also allowed any person with a phone to become a content creator, further saturating the market so heavily that the industry actually can't support the sheer volume. Top 40 radio has seen an increase of new music acts on the charts, and this is largely related to TikTok users catapulting songs that they enjoy with viral success. And it's easy to see that being entirely positive because it's life-changing for a lot of people that experience it. I know my own life has changed entirely. Who wouldn't want the music industry to be so leveled out in its playing field that the only barrier for entry is just making a video on your phone? That sounds incredible. And it is, in many ways. But when endless numbers of artists are competing for the same eyeballs that social media has to offer, we find that building sustainability is increasingly difficult and almost impossible sometimes. The demand for songs right now is inordinately high, with the supply being met with over 100,000 songs being released and promoted on the same social and streaming platforms every single day. So even when it feels like the playing field's been leveled out, it's actually become so saturated that you're essentially trying to swim upwards in an ocean that's become thousands of miles deeper, pushing your way to the top and a mass of other people all trying to get there too. Every creator is depending upon the same algorithm to serve their music to a listener, but in actuality, that algorithm might decide they're not even worth the time. So much is left up to chance, but there is a reality that artists have to play the game a little bit. Social media presence just isn't an option anymore for people who are trying to break into mainstream audiences. It's mandatory. Because most listening done will be in algorithm-based environments, whether someone's scrolling down a For You page on TikTok or listening to a Spotify-curated playlist, people aren't playing the same sort of conscious role in deciding who and what they spend their time listening to. So artists have to find a way to engage themselves in those spaces. So back to my first question. How have I stayed? Well, I gotta be honest, I don't really know why all the internet stars aligned for me and made it possible for me to be here today, but I do know how I interact with my own audience online. At the core of everything I do, community is what I strive for, and fandom is no different. Social media is an incredibly powerful tool for connection, and whether you're dancing, singing, writing, you name it, you get to share your interests with people across the world every single day. But I'll be honest, I don't really love social media all the time. In fact, I kind of hate it a lot of the time, because it's really easy to lose sight of what an incredibly powerful tool it is, and instead focus on how demoralizing it feels to have your voice be heard amongst so many other people trying to do the same thing. For artists, I know it's really disheartening when you look at the task at hand to try and find success for your music, but while you're cranking away at promoting a song, take a second to meet your audiences where they're at. There is a huge world out there filled with people with a vast array of interests, and you can connect with them not just on the basis of your art. I know in my own community, one of my greatest joys is talking about the other things that I like, whether it's video games or books that I've been reading or the movies that I've been really into lately, and you get to do that too. There is such a huge world out there, and if artists and creators alike go into social media with the only expectation that promotion is their goal, you're going to sink mentally and physically. But if you go in with the idea that social media can be used for self-expression and connection, you'll probably have more fun with it, and you'll build community along the way. For audience members, there's no expectation that you suddenly have to become a die-hard fan of every artist ever, but maybe it's worth checking out who that artist was on a song you found yourself enjoying the other day. Musicians are learning and adapting just as you are, and so remind yourself that the people on your screens, over your headphones, and on the radio are all people, and you have the power to change their lives. I know because my own life was changed entirely by people like you. I get to stand here today because enough people cared about the music that I was making. They bought a ticket to a show that I played. They bought an album that I released, and that's incredible. You have so much power in your hands, and if you find ways to be intentional and conscious about sort of the music that you consume in your free time, it makes a world of difference to the people that are making it to begin with. And you might also find more artists that you like because of it. Music is a two-way street between creator and consumer, and we all have to work together to make a landscape where art can thrive, and it starts with just taking a second to listen, whether it's to an artist that you don't know yet on the radio, or when you're sitting in an auditorium waiting to watch a TED Talk. Thank you.